So welcome all to this final New Perspectives webinar of the year, and the last in our 8-week series on the coming of the subjective age. Today we'll begin with a brief overview of topics covered by our panelists in this series, followed by additional insights on the subjective age by Vladimir. And lastly, we'd like to take this opportunity to share several major initiatives here at LaGrasse in support of the subjective age. Vladimir, if you could just show that first slide. So in this series on the coming of the subjective age, our keynote speakers touched upon the whole paradigm of social development in the light of Sri Aurobindo. Vladimir introduced the series with a broad overview of the subjective age and compared different developmental models from the ancient system of yugas with Sri Aurobindo's psychology of social development and Gebser's structures of consciousness. This was followed in part 2 by Dr. Basu, who described the transition to the subjective age with all its major characteristics and dangers, highlighting the difference between true and false subjectivism. In part 3, Alok addressed the anticipated changes in individual behavior, perceptions, and values during the subjective age, as well as the difference between spirituality and religion. Then in part 4, a very interesting webinar indeed, Santosh contrasted the current objective approach to media and communications with the approach in the upcoming subjective age, emphasizing peer-to-peer interactions, bringing like-minded individuals together, and allowing for the exploration of ideas and concepts outside the mainstream scope of broad-based mass media. In a deeply moving presentation, Matthew walked us through the Bhakti movement from the Vedic to modern times, culminating in the subjective age modalities and recognizing the leading role of the psychic being in the individual and social life of humanity during the subjective age. Jared Quick, in part 6, addressed the development of the inner sciences and the importance of their integration into the mainstream education during the subjective age. And for those of you that joined us last week in a panel discussion, Jayanti and Anuradha provided an exquisite overview of integral education and the anticipated paradigm shift towards spiritual education. So we are extremely grateful for all our collaborators in this series and would like to thank them for sharing their knowledge and wisdom with the Integral Yoga community. And this entire series is available on the LaGrasse website through our newly launched Knowledge Bank. I'll be posting the URL in the chat box, and if there's time at the end of this webinar, we will also demonstrate the new Knowledge Bank. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to you, Vladimir, for some concluding insights on the subjective age.
Thank you, Radhe. So the whole idea of this series was meant to overview the recent developments in our social life and our individual life, especially in terms of unknown and unexplained phenomena of rising of the national awareness and its dominant power over people. We can see this all over the world in different countries. We can see the rising of national awareness in India, China, Middle Asia, European countries. We can see this even in Russian Federation, in 22 different republics of Russian Federation, in Ukraine, It led to the revolution of awareness of one's own nation. The same happens in pre-Baltic republics, in all the countries. And this phenomena is not really understood and easily kind of followed and explained. What we know about this is only German Nazism, which is a perversion of nationalism. And Sri Aurobindo addresses these issues in The Human Cycle. So we learned from him about the positive nationalism and negative forms of nationalism, of the true subjectivism and false subjectivism, and all the dangers on the path to the true national spirit. And this awakening of the nations, according to Sri Aurobindo, is the beginning of the subjective age, where the rising of the nations precedes the awakening of the individual psychic qualities. So individuals are waking up after the nation spirits are leading the way. Moreover, Sri Aurobindo foresees not only the development, but also the necessity of such a process. The nation souls are to support the awareness of the deeper and truer qualities of the individuals. So there are many individuals in the world who are already waking up to this necessity of the deeper meaning in life, but they do not have social support. And this social support is given to them by the awakening of the nation souls. What else I wanted to say to this series is that Sri Aurobindo also believes that without the formation of nation souls, the ideal of human unity becomes only a concept. It cannot be realized. So there are 3 steps, as he describes. The first awakening is of the unity within the family and clan. And then second, bigger unity is formed by the nation souls. And the final is the ideal of human unity can be realized finally. So these 3 steps, he calls them the 3 steps of Vishnu: family, nation, and human unity, are the process which he foresees in his human cycle and the ideal of human unity. So that's why we dedicated so much time to the series of awakening of nation souls and of the coming of the subjective age. Now we would like to truly prepare another approach to this matter and shift from the social overview to the more individual development, because these 2 movements are connected. One supports the other. So at the La Grace, we are focusing on the development of 12 qualities of the psychic being presented in the mother symbol, as you know, and the faculties of consciousness, which represent the functionality of our inner and outer consciousness, mental, vital, and physical. We call them the technology of consciousness. So on one side, we have the development of the technology of our seeing, speaking, hearing, thinking, feeling, and being in the body. And on the other side, the very verities, as Mother calls them, or faculties, or the qualities of the innermost being. So we would like to develop the whole educational form for the inner development of human beings. We are focusing mainly on the individuals, and these 2 formations of the functionality of consciousness and the the very qualities of our innermost being have to assist us in this development. So this was my brief overview of the previous and the necessity of the next stage of our webinars and presentations and our research, which I will touch upon later. And now I would like to invite Radhe to present the first part of our 12 qualities and of the psychic being in the mother's symbol. Please, Radhe.
Okay, yeah, would you mind maybe showing that second slide?
Do you see it?
No, I just need you to, let me just see here. Okay, yeah, I can see it. So what I wanted to do is, as Vladimir mentioned, we have been spending a tremendous amount of energy and effort and research on these kind of two areas, the inner development of the qualities and contact with the soul, as well as the outer development of the faculties of consciousness. And so I wanted to begin this discussion on the work that we've been doing on the qualities and really the mother symbol in total, which includes the Mahashaktis, with this particular quote. This little mind, vital, and body, which we call ourselves, is an external bit of personality put forward for one brief life for the play of the ignorance. It is equipped with an ignorant mind stumbling about in search of fragments of truth, an ignorant vital rushing about in search of fragments of pleasure, an obscure and mostly subconscious physical receiving the impacts of things and suffering rather than possessing a resultant pain or pleasure. All that is accepted until the mind gets disgusted and starts looking about for the real truth of itself and things. The vital gets disgusted and begins wondering where there is not such a thing, whether there is not such a thing as real bliss. And the physical gets tired and wants liberation from itself and its pains and pleasures. Then it is possible for the little ignorant bit of personality to get back to its real self, and with it to these greater things. This is Sri Aurobindo's quote. So this need to get back to the real self, which within us is the psychic being or soul, is a critical step during this subjective age, which each speaker in this series has highlighted. And in fact, it is the very thing which will help smooth our impending transition from the individualistic to the subjective age. Everywhere, Sri Aurobindo and the mother emphasize this need to open inwards, to live inwards, to receive from within. And so this inward movement and repeated contact with the psychic being allows the soul to come forward from behind the veil, and its presence slowly begins to influence and transform the mind and the vital movements and the physical, until eventually they become the instruments of the psychic being. And if you could please go to the third slide. Thank you. So the transformative powers of the psychic, as Vladimir mentioned, and you all know, are represented in the mother's symbol by the four Mahashaktis and their personalities and powers. We have Maheshwari for knowledge, Mahalakshmi for harmony, Mahakali for force, and Mahasaraswati for perfection. And if you notice, these four Mahashaktis and their powers align with the higher purpose, or you could say dharma, of each of our outer parts of being. If you look at Maheshwari, you'll notice that she aligns with her power of knowledge. She aligns with the mind and its higher purpose, which is to seek truth, wisdom, self and world knowledge. And Mahalakshmi of harmony, aligning with our heart, with its dharma of seeking joy, love, beauty, and harmony. And Mahakali of force, is aligned with the vital force, with its dharma of strength, effective power, forward movement, and progress. And lastly, Mahasaraswati, aligning with the body and its higher purpose of perfection and form, a form that is fluid, flexible, adaptable, as well as being in service to others. And of course, Sri Aurobindo also tells us that these four Mahashaktis represent the four major lines of development, or swabhava, for the soul: knowledge, harmony, power, and perfection. And Sri Aurobindo tells us that in each embodiment, the soul chooses one of these four major lines of development through which to grow through experience. So the importance of these four Mahashaktis and their powers are extremely critical during the subjective age, as are the 12 verities or soul powers that begin with sincerity, which you see at the beginning, and going counterclockwise ends with peace. So the mother describes the 12 soul powers as divine powers. If you could show the next slide, Vladimir. So she describes these as the secret dweller of our innermost heart, the utmost truth of our being. The soul has its own divine qualities and divine secret powers, which we must find in the depths of ourselves and bring them to life. So as Lagrasse's part and participation in the transition to the subjective age, we have focused intensely on these four Mahashaktis and these 12 divine secret powers. As many of you may know and may have even participated in, we've led many workshops on uncovering, how to uncover your swabhava and related swadharma, again represented by the Mahashaktis, along with a deep study of their unique transformative powers. And we've developed various tools and exercises relative to helping one uncover their swabhava. In terms of the 12 soul powers, we've approached each soul power from multiple perspectives over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and really in incredible depth. We've gathered hundreds of quotes from Sri Aurobindo and the Mother on each quality. We've held probably well over 50 hours of workshops conducted not only by Vladimir and myself, but by many community members and Lagrasse collaborators. Films are being created on each quality. Vladimir has been critical and working with 12 Qualities Art Studio in developing these films. We have created and developed reflection practices, experiential exercises, meditations, all around each of these 12 qualities. And all this we've done for the means of discovering each of these soul powers, first and foremost for ourselves, and then helping others discover them, and as a community, learning and sharing about them with each other. So we wanted to emphasize today in this last session on the subjective age, the criticalness of the 12 soul powers, of the 4 Mahashaktis, of the connection with the psychic being, and the focus that we've been putting on them here at Lagrasse. In fact, we've just recently embarked on a new 4-part series of workshops, each workshop being 12 weeks in duration, and each covering 3 soul powers and their related Mahashaktis. And this is a series that will continue through most of next year. So this is the 3rd or 4th round that we've done with these soul powers. And each round, we learn new things, we discover new aspects of them. We have an opportunity to hear from our community members and participants, their particular experiences. So it's been incredibly rich and fulfilling, both for Vladimir and I individually, and as well as just for Lagrasse as a center. And in 2023, we want to begin exploring ways to introduce these soul powers into the corporate workplace. So this will be a new initiative relating to these soul powers. We believe that the corporate workplace will be very open to this, to these qualities that are already being introduced in the way of, courageous leadership or equanimity, etc. And so we think that with a little bit more work and research and meeting with some of our corporate partners, that we'll be able to kind of develop each of these in a more detailed way that are specific to the corporate workplace and its environment. So again, we believe these qualities and their transformative powers are critical as we transition into the subjective age where the guidance and the coming forward of the psychic being is paramount. So related to this critical need to open inwards, to live from within, to receive from within, LaGrasse is also currently hosting a 10-week course developed and instructed by Jayashree Blanch on the yoga of conscious sleep. And in this workshop, Jayashree looks at the practice of sleeping as a conscious effort to engage with our inner subliminal consciousness in order to bring about changes to the outer nature and integrate the inner and outer self. So this has just been a course that's been wonderfully received by our community, and she will be continuing next year with a part 2 in this course. And then lastly, if you want to go to the 5th slide. So in this vein of looking within and living within, we have decided that the theme of our 2023 Sri Aurobindo Integral Yoga Retreat will be the yoga of discovery, development, and self-mastery. So this is a 4-day retreat held from July 5th to 9th at the Marriott here in Greenville, South Carolina. And as always, we will be flying in speakers from Pondicherry, as well as several guest speakers here in the US. But the purpose here is to, again, kind of support this transition that we're in the middle of by really emphasizing this inner development, the inner worlds, the inner connection with the psychic, and bringing forward the qualities in order to transform this outer being. So with that, Vladimir, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Radhe. So this was a part of our program, big part, the central part, the development of soul powers. And reaching these soul powers have to be bridged to the surface and occupy all our activities of consciousness. Now I will focus more on the other half of our program, that is the development of the faculties of consciousness, which is also very important for our functionality in the world. So these are the major faculties which we use non-stop all the time. Our thinking process, how we think. If you concentrate on our own activities, we will see that our thought process is going on all the time uninterruptedly. Then our self-expression and communication, which is taking place through the word, through speech, and through other languages. We express ourselves not only to others, but also to our surface mind. We communicate with our surface consciousness, and that has to be also developed, this kind of faculty. Then there is a faculty of feelings. We are constantly feeling, we have emotions. Every thought is triggering some kind of memory, some kind of reaction, pleasant or unpleasant. All these feelings, emotions, and sensations are to be dealt with. And we want to deal with them in the way that we become more and more conscious of what is happening in this field, and to become able to select what we want to feel and what we don't want to feel. We could control our own inner process by selecting the positive emotions and reject negative ones. Fears and distractions and disharmonies we can deal with if we develop this consciousness which operates through these faculties. Then we have faculty of seeing and hearing, comprehensive and apprehensive cognition. I will touch upon this in a minute. And the body consciousness, body awareness. What is our body doing? Yes. And all these have to be dealt with consciously from now on, and not in terms of their only functionality, but the awareness of what we can do and how we can operate within this machine. So this operation within machine is another half of our paradigm. And we call it integral knowledge paradigm, where the major part, the awakening of the inner being, which Radha covered, will be illumining with its light and capturing these functionalities of our consciousness and making them more and more suitable for the manifestation of the spirit and the higher being in us. And so this combination of two is actually building up the whole new approach to the development of individual. So we are drifting from the social awareness towards more individual awareness, and now want to deal with it more thoroughly. So let me give you some examples and show you some something which may help and trigger some understanding of these faculties. And if you have some questions, please put into the question and answer box or raise your hand at the end. So here I prepared just one small text. I took it from Kena Upanishad. It's a translation. Yadvachana bhyuditam yena vaga bhyudyate tadeva brahma tvam vidhi nedam yadidam upasate. So this is the text. I just put a very direct and suitable way of translating it. Consciousness or Brahman cannot be expressed by speech, because it is by consciousness that one speaks, because by consciousness that the word is expressed. So how can word try to express consciousness if by consciousness it is expressed? Consciousness cannot be thought by thinking, because it is by consciousness that one thinks. Consciousness cannot be seen by the sight, because by the consciousness that one sees. Consciousness cannot be heard by the hearing, because by the consciousness that one hears. Consciousness cannot be felt by the feeling, because it is by consciousness that one feels. So this is the paradigm of the Upanishads, which we take as the foundation for our dealing with faculties of consciousness. So I made a small scheme here. So consciousness is present in all the faculties, because these faculties are the faculties of consciousness and their activities. And in fact, the faculties themselves are the activities of consciousness in a way. So consciousness acts through or by, let us say, the mind, speech. By the speech it is acting, by the sight, hearing, feeling, and even by the body consciousness, within feeling oneself as an entity, separate entity as the body. I didn't include body here, but it is implied. So these activities of consciousness have their own activities. They act, and they act as thinking of the mind, or imagining, or perceiving, or conceptualizing, or cognizing. This mind will be doing. Then speech will be speaking, expressing oneself, communicating. Seeing will be seeing, of course, sight will be seeing. The very act of seeing by the sight, which is the action of consciousness. Hearing will be perceiving through hearing, and comprehending. If seeing will be apprehending, recognizing the form, hearing will be recognizing the intention of the form or its relation to other forms in terms of meaning. And feeling is something which is like a living entity which is cognized through feeling. Yeah? So the action of prana, or the action of the life force, is acting through feeling, emotions, and sensations in the body. And the products of these activities, of those faculties of consciousness, are the concepts, the thoughts, the images, memories, the words, the expressions, the gestures, the other forms of languages which could be expressed, poetries, literature, you name it. And the seeing will be the products, will be the forms, the colors, the shapes, the relations of different structures. The hearing would produce also the number of sounds, sounds which are meaningfully related and meaningfully combining into one space within which everything has its place and has its activity. And the feeling would be the vibrations which we recognize within ourselves as those who are acting upon us and our life force in a specific way. So basically, these products are the products of these activities, of these faculties, which are themselves the activities of consciousness. So consciousness is present throughout all of them. This consciousness, or we call him Purusha in the Indian tradition, has these faculties. Purusha is the man, or the body of man, which has eyes, nostrils, ears, mouth, thought process, mind, heart. All these elements are embodied in the body of Purusha, and consciousness acts through them. So this is what we call the technology of consciousness, which we would like to approach in a more holistic, in a more integral way. And we call it integral paradigm of knowledge because all of these faculties are to be developed within us. We have to become conscious in our thought, conscious in our speech. We have to be able to select what we want to speak, what we want to think, what we want to feel, how we see, to be conscious in our sight process and hearing, comprehension. We have to be able to listen deeply and to find the very meaning of or the intention of the speaker. And also in the process of feeling, we shall be able to manage our vitality, which is quite a difficult task. So all of this is a part of our IPK. We call it IPK, Integral Paradigm of Knowledge. If I have maybe a minute more or some, so I will maybe say a few more words. Just to give you an example, if we develop the, for example, the mental qualities, the mind, or the what it would be, what would we do to develop the mind? The faculty of thinking. What is thinking? What is thought? We have to really discover it. Sri Aurobindo says that we receive thoughts in two forms: of the image, imagination, or form, and the word. The form and the word are coming to us and form our thoughts. So what would be the curriculum of this particular development of the mind? Let us take only mind. That would be, first of all, the concentration of the mental force, concentration of the mind. This is the utmost important It's quite clear why, because by concentration of the mind, we can learn everything. As Vivekananda said, if he would only know that he has to learn only concentration, he would not waste his time learning other subjects. He would really train his mind to be able to focus on anything and to learn everything. So this is the power of the mind. This is the very quintessential power of the mind. It can focus consciousness on any object or subject, and by focusing on it, it can come to know it or to identify with it. So it results in the knowledge by identity. So silencing the mind is another big important exercise. Concentration is not possible without mind being silenced. So silencing the mind is a great and important exercise, and it's also in the integral yoga. Observing and selecting thoughts. It is also on the ground of concentration and silent mind. Casting away undesired thoughts and suggestions, accepting the thoughts and which we want to follow, training mental will, always doing what is decided and promised, even if it is not suitable for us, because it trains the mental will. Discipline of the mind, developing different logical systems, maybe even using something from the ancient system of Purva Paksha. Purva Paksha is a very interesting exercise. When we argue with someone, we have to know for sure what he means. In other words, we have to repeat the same argument or the same thesis which the person says before we start arguing with it. We have to know it properly. So without this, argument is not possible. So a habit of thinking by viewing all pros and cons, distinguishing perception and conception, or perceptional and conceptual thinking, analytic and synthetic cognition, reasoning, dialectical thinking, paradoxical thinking, symbolic thinking, apprehensive and comprehensive cognition, this distinction between them in the mind, intuitive thinking, integral thought. Integral thought is of the higher mind, where all the opposites can be integrated into one vision. Multiple concentration and multitasking in the mind, studies and control of brainwave activities, delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma wave regulation. At will, we can do it by practicing. We can really regulate our state by practicing and learning from the outer device how we can really regulate our brain activities, our waves. This is a new thing, and I tried it out. It works very marvelously. It's a very interesting device. Studies and control of these at will, of these brainwave activities. Thinking and being conscious of thoughts. It's a big task. Being conscious of what we are thinking. Of their nature and their source, where they are coming from, reading thoughts of others, sending thoughts and intentions to others, widening mental consciousness and scope of thinking, higher mind cognitive activities, becoming a receptacle of a higher intuitions and light of knowledge, which leads us to the separation of mental Purusha from mental activities, separating the witness part or the passive part of the mind from the active part of the mind, which will lead us eventually to the separation of Purusha from Prakriti, which we call Mukti, the liberation. So I gave you just one overview of the development of one of these faculties. There is another big one, is the speech, but most probably we will have to stop here to open for questions. And if you have some, yeah, I will give.
I think too, Vladimir, maybe before we go to the questions, you know, we've been sharing today the work and research that we've been doing in this area of the 12 qualities and the faculties of consciousness in preparation to the transition to the subjective age. But we also wanted to recognize, as probably all of you are aware, that everywhere, all over the world, you know, we see individuals, centers, organizations that are consciously supporting this transition to the subjective age. Many of you may be part of the Sri Aurobindo Integral Education Network, SCION, that was formed later last year, and they're bringing together people and resources and centers from around the world for the purpose of sharing knowledge and offering workshops and courses across a broad range of topics. So in the integral yoga community, this is really the first time that this has been attempted on an international level. We've also seen individuals joining hands with Sri Aurobindo organizations and launching incredible websites during the past year or two. Many of you may be familiar with the Incarnate Word website, which was developed in collaboration with Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch and Savitri Foundation. And we have Don Salman, who is with us here today, and his wife, Jan Maslow, very dear friends, as well as close collaborators. They have developed several online courses which are entirely inspired by integral yoga and aimed for people both inside and outside the circle of Aurobindonians. And this is an increasing movement we see, that especially when we come to things like the universal concepts embodied by the 12 qualities. These are qualities that are being introduced everywhere. They are not specific to, if you will, integral yoga in terms of having a broader reach to both corporate America and to individuals. And so we see people like Don, some of you who may be familiar with the work that Santosh is doing on his blogging, as well as his social media sites, and even Sion attempting to reach out beyond the circle of Aurobindonians as we move into this subjective age, in bringing forth these valuable universal concepts and principles associated with integral yoga. So, you know, all such efforts, all such initiatives are extremely important for this time, and really supporting the inner focus and the development as we move into this subjective age. So I just wanted to recognize and honor others that are also doing just incredible work around the world in this area. So we can, at that point, we can go to questions if you'd like, Vladimir.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Of course, we just didn't even scratch the surface. And we gave it the example because these are the profound topics and they need dwelling. And as I see here in the questions, to give examples, to go deeper into Sanjnana, Jnana, Vijnana, and Prajnana, which we do not have time for this session. But of course, we are planning for the next year to start the whole series of webinars for the development of the faculties of consciousness. We had some of them with Namaha and before also in our La Grace Center. But now we are planning to do more thorough work with development of each of these faculties in depth, so to say, diving deeper. And so we are all inviting you to participate in this research. By the way, I wanted to maybe share with you something on our research. If we have a little time, here it is. So if you look at our website, you will see this research institute, and you click here to see what we are doing and what we are planning to do in the future. This is integral paradigm of knowledge for educational and working environment, faculties of consciousness and the approaches to knowledge, which I didn't touch upon, which is also a very important and interesting topic. The development of the first person inquiry method. That's the whole purpose of this study, is to become aware that behind every activity, every faculty, there is a consciousness. And to become aware of that consciousness is the drifting towards the first person inquiry method. So we are using the domains of knowledge as the means for self-discovery. Then we have the consciousness-based business models and integral technologies, new approach to the concept of work as a means of growth of consciousness. It's also a very important karma yogic vision from the Gita. Working environment is a place for development rather than production, self-growth and growth of consciousness rather than only production. Production is byproduct of work, and every work has to become educational. This is the demand of the subjective age. And we have this topic of science of living, 12 qualities of the mother symbol, which Radha explained so well already. Research and application for our university also. We did this program of science of living at our university, and it is still going on. Very important program for new education, for integral education. And also for continuous education in the West, we developed films, publications, games, storytelling, audiobooks, which Radha mentioned. We have also another big part of our activity, which is spiritual knowledge in the ancient Indian scriptures. Here we are doing more than anywhere else, actually. This is the part which is very active. We have fundamentals of spiritual knowledge of the Rig Veda, the Upanishads, the Gita, the ongoing study groups, and webinars and courses. Radha is running several courses on Jyotisha, on Ayurveda, and she wrote several books on Ayurveda and Jyotisha. So this is something we want to deconstruct this knowledge and to bring it into a new light of this necessity of self-development rather than study them in their own domain. Yeah. And then there is a linguistic research, which is most dear for me. This is the origins of human tongue in the light of Sri Aurobindo. Here I take Sanskrit language as the material for the discovery of the origins of human tongue. Sanskrit etymology, Spota theory, philosophy of language. So I just wanted you to know that and to see what we are doing as a research team. And we are inviting everyone to participate within these topics. They are very vast, broad. They cover nearly everything we know until now. So you're most welcome to join our party. So here I stop. So let us come to the...
I'll go ahead and take the first couple questions, if that's okay. We have Don that is asking about this initiative to introduce the 12 qualities to the corporate world and corporate partners, and how much importance it will be placing on scientific research. So this is an excellent question. It's something that we have certainly been focused on. We know that mindfulness has been so well received in the corporate world the past 3, 4, 5 years as a result of the tremendous amount of scientific research that was done in that area and presented to the corporate world, showing both the objective and the subjective benefits of bringing mindfulness and meditation into the corporate workplace. So absolutely, as we look at these 12 qualities and entryways into the corporate workplace, we are gathering research that is being done in this area. There's actually quite a bit that's been done around authenticity, or what we would say sincerity, around courage and leadership. So we see this as a very critical part, bringing science to these 12 qualities, and really kind of supporting, at least in the West, where scientific research is well respected. And we see a lot of articles being published in places like the Harvard Business School Review, et cetera. So a lot of importance being put already on the research behind this. So thank you, Don, for your question. And absolutely, it'll be a critical component for the business community. And maybe I'll just take the second one too, Vladimir, if that's okay. Thank you for this great series. What is Lagrange doing to leverage marketing and outreach to reach out to the wider global audience of potential learners? So we actually almost, well, probably a little over 50% of our audience and those that attend our various classes and workshops, and certainly those joining New Perspectives, over 50%, I think just over 50%, are from India, from Europe, even Singapore. Although it is, you know, nearly midnight at Singapore, we do have people joining us from there. And so, you know, we do have a global audience here at Lagrange. And, you know, as well, Vladimir mentioned a little bit earlier, Aro University, and we have an equivalent center that's about to open over in Surat, India, on the campus of Aro University, Sri Aurobindo Integral Life Center and Surat, and they also are doing the equivalent teachings and reaching out to not only local in India, but also worldwide, and we're in close collaboration with them. So I think we are reaching out, and it's really, you know, like I mentioned before, it's not just us, but so many people, so many centers, so many organizations and individuals that are doing the same. So I think there is a global coverage on Sri Aurobindo and the Mother's Integral Yoga at this point. But clearly, if you have any thoughts or ideas and other ways that we should be reaching out, you know, let us know. We'd like to hear from you.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Radha. There are also a few questions about consciousness. And well, Abhinav, would you like to ask or to clarify what you mean? Maybe we should bring you to the forward, if you like, to the panel, because it's really the current slide on consciousness. This is, here you are. Thank you, Radha. So Abhinav, could you explain your question or your concern, or what you want to add? You have to unmute yourself.
Let's see, I probably have to.
Is it okay now?
Yes, we see you again.
Hi, Abhinav. So nice to see you.
Hi, everybody. So I was asking, the slide you presented seems to be about the outgoing consciousness.
Right.
But there is an aspect of consciousness which takes you within.
Right. Consciousness is, yeah, right.
I was wondering whether you can
I understood.
Elaborate on that.
I understood what you're saying. In this slide, we assume that within is consciousness, yes. And all the faculties are actually the activities of consciousness, which are mainly projected outside. But these faculties also can be turned within, from outside within, and find the very source from which they come. This I didn't say. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, thank you for this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is the process of yoga. As in the Upanishads, yes, they say the wise did not look outside, he looked within.
True.
Right.
You know, I'm going to also bring over Don. I see he's got a number of questions in the chat box. So he's going to join us too. And Abhinav, please stay with us if you're able to.
Yeah, you are our team,
Don,
Abhinav and Don.
I don't see Don coming over.
No.
Maybe he prefers not. And if not, then you can just read his
All right.
just a couple of questions there, and I'll continue to try to bring him over.
Right. It would seem to be extremely helpful to hear very brief description, 5-10 sentences describing the action of all the faculties of consciousness in every action, everyday actions. Drinking a cup of coffee. Let us take the drinking. Yeah? So basically this would answer also your question on the samjnana, ajnana, vijnana, prajnana, because these are the fundamental secret operations of consciousness which define what we know later as mind, hearing, seeing, speaking. These would be the outcomes or the faculties which will be formed known to us, but those secret operations will stay behind. So these are the first is there are two apprehensive and two comprehensive movements of consciousness. Two apprehensive are the samjnana, inbringing of the object of sense into oneself to know it by feeling, this knowledge by identity. The other is the outgoing of apprehensive cognition to know object as such. Yeah? And the other two comprehensive is to see how this object or subject relates to all other objects and subjects in a meaningful fashion, and then to have a power over it, so to say, to control it, to deal with it subjectively from my side as I will. Ajnana. So these are the four: samjnana, prajnana, vijnana, and ajnana, respectively. I'm trying to make it very brief. Now, it's quite interesting that if we look at the action that I will take this glass, I'm telling you what I will do. I will take this glass of water or the pepper. So I will put it inside, so some water to drink. So I will take this glass and drink and put it back. So to do this, for me, I have to engage all the operations of consciousness. They are all simultaneously working. First of all, I have to focus on this glass. I have to focus all my consciousness on it, refocusing it from other sides, so from other thoughts, memories, and so on. So it has to be connected to me. This is inbringing of apprehensive cognition, samjnana. So by knowing it, by already focusing on it, I also have to recognize that this glass is separate from me. It's not me. Though I feel it as through myself, it is still cognized by me as such, separate from me, prajnana, knowing it by analytic and synthetic cognition. I analyze it. So I can feel that it is different in the texture, it is different in the temperature, in the weight, it is an additional part of my body, it's not me. Though I already identified with these two apprehensive movements. Now, to really understand that this glass is related to me and to the table on which, and water which is within, and my mouth which will drink it, this is the comprehensive cognition of vijnana. All the relations in this world, table, me sitting at this chair, table, computer, this room, this world around, with the speed with which we fly, all this, you listening to it, all this relates to this glass and you're all fixed on it. So now, for me to make an operation, I have to know this. I simultaneously know all these relations. So that's how I know that my hand will be able to grasp the glass, bring it forward. I know it. I know that this water will fit into my mouth and I will be able to drink it. So all this simultaneous knowledge of all that which is not immediately present, but will be revealed in time, in action, it belongs to vijnana, the comprehensive knowledge of all details, properties, relations, meanings. That is simultaneously present in this action. And the last one is ajnana, that I will be able to stretch my hand to grab the glass and to drink it. I force it to change its position towards me and do it as I will. So in this simple movement of drinking glass, these four are simultaneously present. Yeah, now I stop. Yeah, Don, you're here.
We've read Don.
Thank you, Vladimir. I appreciate that. So in the number of talks I've given over the last year to the Sri Aurobindo Ashram, Namat Journal, the Delhi Ashram, and for LaGrasse, I've been coming up with how do we put the integral yoga in the simplest terms possible? And this is important for my complicated mind. So we hear so often, just surrender, remember and offer, that's all there is to it. And yet we have 60 plus volumes of writing of theirs and these, thousands of websites and seminars. So here's what I've come up with. And I'll just say a little bit in relation both to the qualities that Radhe talks about and the faculties. 4 words: quiet mind, open heart. And this comes from over 40 years ago. I read the mother's writings in education. And to this date, they remain among my favorite writings. And what I love the most is that this is not often spoken of in the yoga, but she said, I wrote these not for people doing yoga. I wrote these even for the most intransigent materialists or positivists. And so when Jan and I have been developing these courses, many people in the yoga say, well, that's not integral yoga. I say, well, I'm trying to follow what the mother said. So I would say, finally, in relation to what Radhe and Vladimir spoke of today, for me to understand the qualities, the soul qualities and faculties of consciousness, what I try to do when I listen to what they're saying is I love what they're presenting. First, I step back, whatever possibility, step back into the quiet mind, where there's just an opening, a quiet, if possible, a silence. And I find, rather than starting with the heart, because I know my ego, my vital ego can pretend, this is just me. If I start with quiet, you can't pretend to have a quiet mind. I go back to the quiet, the heart opens spontaneously. And then when I hear about the qualities, I hear about the faculties, it's immediately coming from a deeper, higher place. I just wanted to share that beginning with a quiet mind, and everyone can read the first 2 pages of Basics of Yoga, and within a few moments, you'll get some sense of the quiet mind. So that's an easy place to start. And if you care about this yoga, your heart will open automatically. And then when I listen to Vladimir describing the faculties, it's not just, oh, it's me listening. It's like suddenly there's a sense of wideness and beauty and devotion. So it's not just, oh, I'm seeing the cup. It's like this marvelous, wonderful experience of consciousness. When I hear about when Radhe talks about sincerity, oh, well, Groucho Marx said, boy, sincerity is so important. If you can pretend that, you got it made. Right? You can fake sincerity, you got life made. So I need to be sure I'm not coming from an egoic place totally when I'm hearing about this. And I'll tell you the last thing about science. There are now non-dual research laboratories exploring in New York University, exploring consciousness beyond the ego. We're really in the midst of a transitioning age. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Don. Actually, to become aware of how consciousness functions is actually what we are trying to do within this integral paradigm. So I'm aware of, I'm conscious of my speech. Not only I say whatever comes to me, I am conscious of what comes to me, and I select what to say, and not select because it is dangerous or it is pleasant to say. No, there is another trigger. There is a sincerity involved in my selection. So this is sincere speech. This combination of the verities or the qualities with faculties is actually all we have, yes? Well, on one side, the technologies of consciousness or the faculties, and on the other side is this truthful attitude or the soul light, which is enlightening these qualities, these faculties, and making them more and more efficient. And in that sense, of course, there are a few more questions here about how to join and how to do the research with us. Please, Kamala, just write to us what you would like to do, or let us talk, or send the email, and we will definitely do together. We are inviting all interested in research and publications and presentations to collaborate with us. There is another question: are past workshops available to view through recordings? Yes, and this may be few words you will say.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. And in fact, we are just soft launching, if you will, the past couple of weeks, what we call the Knowledge Bank on our website, and we'll be finalizing and sending out an email on it. But I can certainly show you how even now you can go out and visit the Knowledge Bank, what we call that bank that we keep all of the past webinars and research and videos and music. If you go to our website, lagrassecenter.com, and you just come over to online learning. So you'll have three options here. You can register for live stream events, which are our new perspectives, our All Life is Yoga, our study groups, and these are all free events. You can click on our course and workshop, where we are offering both online and self-paced. Or you can go to, again, what we call our knowledge bank. So this is our collection of 250, 300 webinars, audiobooks that we just added, etc. And you just click on this. It will ask you, if you haven't registered, simply for your email address and a password. But then you'll come down and you'll see all of our different webinars here and research articles, etc. And we have a nice search engine, so you can either put in a keyword here. If you're interested in what we've done on the subjective age, you submit it. What you'll get is all the series that we've done, absent today's, which will be on in about 24 hours, if not less. And you can click on any one of these and you'll see both the recording as well as, if there's slides, then we've also put the slides. Otherwise, you can go in and choose by topic: 12 Living Principles, Art and Culture, our Darshan events, Faculties of Consciousness, etc. If we want to do, let's say, let's do spirituality and consciousness. And then you can also say by type. You want to look at the research or articles that are being done, any audiobooks in this category, film or music or meditation, talks and quotes, or webinar. So let's say we want to be very specific to a webinar. You can also further restrict it by our programs or by presenter. So we have a long list of our collaborators and presenters. And then you simply submit, and then you'll see what comes up of all those workshops and articles and research that has to do with spirituality and consciousness. Again, being able to click on any one of them to access the video. So this is, like I said, newly launched, 1 or 2 new features that we'll be adding before the end of the year. But you can go out now, and if you don't have time to watch something that you're interested in, you can also add it to your favorite and it'll store it for you, and you can come back at a time that you'd like to watch it. But here we have video, etc. So I will also put kind of LaGrasse's URL in the chat box for those of you. But please go out, use it, experiment with it, give us your feedback if there's other features you'd like to see. Hi, HP, how are you?
HP is with us. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. It was very enlightening. While I was traveling, I'm watching it. Thanks.
He's on the road.
Yes.
Nice that you could join us.
I'm at JFK Airport.
Okay, very nice.
Have a safe journey.
Thank you.
Right. And we have to mention that this is all also the part of the Integral Life Center in Surat and Auro University. It's also kind of contribution to the development of the education in our university, which is kind of quite an interesting collaboration between two different countries, two different worlds, the US on one side and India on the other side. Two sister organizations. That was the idea of HP to create this bridge between East and West. And that's the idea of integral yoga also. There are more things here. Oh, one thing is here, one more question we may answer on why is the body consciousness so persistent? On the other hand, it seems it is easier to step away from the mental consciousness and vital consciousness. Physical is more challenging. It is, yes, it is more challenging, more persistent, but it is also a very necessary ground for fixing every possible change in consciousness. And in that sense, it is resisting the change and at the same time fixing any progress in consciousness. And that's how actually the progress can take place. If physical would not be there, all changes in consciousness will be futile. They will be kind of not really determined clearly. I will tell you one interesting kind of impression from my experience. Once I woke up in Auroville and I looked through the window and I was wondering, my motorbike stands in the same position as I left it yesterday. And I thought, wow, material creation is holding it so well. So it really does not go away so easily. So everything you do will be fixed in the physical formation. So this is a great support for our progress. So if you look at it from this point of view, you will appreciate the body.
Yeah, maybe too, I would, while you're with us here, Abhinav, I don't know if you would like to say a few parting words. Abhinav is on our board and has been on our board for quite some time now and has been just a real gift and blessing to get his thoughts and input and direction of LaGrasse. He was one of the founders of Hindu University of America. And so has a broad background in this educational field. But Abhinav, is there just any parting words that you would like to say on this last webinar of the year from LaGrasse?
Well, this particular series has been very, very interesting to me. I'm learning a lot. And I think we should continue this kind of series in next year. And I think you did mention that we will do that. One thought which comes to my mind, and that's a general thing, and that is how do we take this integral education to the general public schools? It may take years of work, but how do we take it? What work we had to do to develop appropriate curriculum for various standards, various grade levels, so that basic ideas can be slowly introduced to these public schools. And that is something which collectively we should be thinking about, not just LaGrasse, but all our various centers should be thinking about how do we do it? What is the best way? What are the experiments we can do? That way it can slowly percolate into the masses, some basic ideas. That's just a thought I had while listening to such talk, because it is still limited to a very small number of audience. Number of people taking advantage is very small compared to the whole earth. How do we do this? So, but otherwise, I enjoy every one of these talks. Thank you for organizing this, Radhe and Vladimir and HP and everybody. Appreciate.
Thank you. So basically, if there are more questions, or maybe remarks rather than questions, and thank you for your appreciation. And Of course, we are working with several people who are building the schools, experimental schools on this ground. We have one group from Noida, Bindurana from Yedukomp,
Yes.
who is building her school. And she's in contact with us for several years. We were discussing with her all the elements of this new education and how to develop from the crash level, from the
Yes.
very beginning, from the youngest. And then, of course, our university is there to create the teachers, because we don't have teachers. That's the whole problem. Yeah. So we have to develop it. I agree with you totally. This is something which is most difficult to do, actually. Because we have to grow in consciousness ourselves. As Mother says, teachers have to be yogis. How many teachers are yogis? So, you know, hardly few. So thank you for this today, and for HP to join us, and Dawn and you, Abhinav. It was very lovely to see you all in this panel. Namaste.
I think we would just also kind of like to end this final webinar of the year, which will be continued next year, New Perspectives, but we just wanted to end it with a very sincere and deep gratitude to all our New Perspectives speakers that has taken their own time to, and sometimes at very inconvenient times, to come on board and share their wisdom and their knowledge with us. We'd like to thank our course collaborators, including Jayashri, Marco, Don, and especially grateful for community members, all of you that have been attending these programs and supporting LaGrasse through your donations and contributions and your service, your seva in these programs. So we want to wish you all a very blessed holiday season. We look forward to seeing you next year. And we'll be getting out a schedule shortly of events coming in January. But thank you all so very, very much, and happy holidays.
Namaste.
Namaste.